It's that time of year again where the schedule and qualifying times for the Swim England Masters National Swimming Championships have been released, and as always I thus have to ask the question, do I have the qualifying times to be able to compete in this year's competition? Which you'd be forgiven for thinking that it would be a guarantee, because if you achieve the qualifying times at a certain age, a younger age, then surely, so long as you don't deteriorate too much, then you should maintain that as the qualification times get slower as you age. However, because master swimming in the UK is becoming ever more popular, it means that the competition and thus the qualifying times are becoming ever more competitive, where each year I start to sweat just that little bit more as the qualification times get closer and closer to my personal bests, or a time that I am actually able to use to enter this competition with. And as such, I want to go through all the qualification times in my age category, the 30 to 34 age group, and just do a bit of an analysis to see how close I am to both the phase 1 and phase 2 qualifying times for each of the events that I have a potential qualifying time for. I don't swim every swimming event, and therefore I only have times for 6 events. So yeah, need to get 1 or 2 of these, or else I'm not swimming at Masters Nationals this year. So if you would give this video a like, I'd very much appreciate it, and remember to follow and subscribe to this channel for more swimming content. But otherwise, without any further ado, let's dive right in to these times. And first off, starting with my favourite event, the 50 metres freestyle. My personal best, which I set at last year's Masters Nationals, was a 27.95. So a pretty decent time, and one that I'm actually happy with because it's my personal best. Where the phase 1 qualifying time is a 25.3. So that means I don't make the phase 1 qualifying time, which means I have to wait for phase 2 entries, which is a little bit of a fingers first exercise, fastest on the buzzer to make sure that you can actually get in. Where at this year's British Masters Nationals, that's the long course event in the UK, there were no places available at the phase 2 qualifying period. However, because this is short course, it means that we can split the pool up into 2, which in theory doubles the amount of entries that can be accommodated. So I'm still optimistic that I'll be able to enter with a phase 2 entry, because the phase 2 qualifying time is a 29.0, so about a second 1.05 seconds within the boundary for this qualifying time, where at previous Masters Nationals I haven't swum that time before, so getting a little bit sweaty in that regard. However, with regards to how close I am to a phase 1 qualifying time, I'm 2.65 seconds off. So even the most optimistic of opinions from myself this year as to is it within me to achieve a phase 1 qualifying time is quite deluded. I'll be very happy with anything in the region of a 27.5 or lower. I'll be very, very happy with that. Naturally, I'll be happy with a personal best, and that's what I'm aiming for this year. But I think anything low 27 point at this year's Masters Nationals will be a job very well done for 2025. So I have a phase 2 qualifying time for the 50 metres freestyle, but getting a little bit sweaty, only a second away from me not being able to qualify, and that phase 1 qualifying time is still some way off. Now onto the 100 metres freestyle. And my personal best in this event is a 101.26. I may be able to call upon a long course converted time of 101 flat. However, the phase 1 qualifying time for this event this year is a 57.5, so 3.76 seconds off, which converts to a 1.88 per 50. So in theory here, I'm closer to achieving a phase 1 qualifying time for the 100 meters freestyle, because it's quicker on a per 50 basis than my 50 meters freestyle. So looking at all of these, in theory, my 100 is my best event. However, yeah, the Swim England short course Masters Nationals Championships, the qualifying times aren't necessarily reflective of, you know, the qualifying times for each event may vary and may not increase linearly. So perhaps it's not the best thing to go off of, but it's the event that I'm closest to getting a phase 1 qualifying time for on a discrepancy per 50 basis, where the phase 2 qualifying time is a 1:04, so 2 3/4 seconds off there. So again, a little bit more comfortable than the 50 meters freestyle on a per 50 basis. But yeah, again, going to have to rely on a phase 2 qualifying time for the 100 meters freestyle. And to be honest, I'm expecting that across all the board. I don't expect to be achieving a phase 1 qualifying time for any of these, or I wasn't before I did the research. However, so it's more just a case of how sweaty am I getting with regards to those phase 2 qualifying times. Moving on to the 200 meters freestyle, and my personal best, which again I set last year at the 2024 Masters Nationals, was a 2:17.51, where the phase 1 qualifying time is a 2:08 flat. So that's a holding 32 seconds per 50 meters, which sounds in theory doable for me, but I've realised is actually quite fast and is difficult to hold at that pace over 4 50s. That equates to a discrepancy of 9.51 seconds and 2.38 seconds per 50. So closer on a per 50 basis to that phase 1 qualifying time than my 53, but a reasonable way behind my 100 meters freestyle. The phase 2 qualifying time here is a 2:30 flat, so a good 12.5 seconds in, which my maths is failing me. That is a 3 second, 3 1/8 second gap there on a per 50 basis. So nice and comfortably within that time, which should be the case as you go up through the distances. The higher the distances, the better I should be versus the qualifying times here. However, that is not the case with my 400 meters freestyle time. Now, bearing in mind, I've actually only ever swum this once, and it was long course. My time was a 5:11.52, where the phase 1 qualifying time is a 4:35 flat, which is holding 34.37 per 50. And so I'm 36.52 seconds off of the phase 1 qualifying time, which equates to 4.5 seconds per 50 meters. So if I were to enter this event, I'm pretty sure that I can massively improve on that 5:11, just on the basis of how far away I am to the phase 1 qualifying time in comparison to the 50, 100 and 200 meters freestyle. I think I should be getting a lot closer to that 4:35. And this is where things get a little bit sweaty, because the phase 2 qualifying time is actually a 5:15 flat. So only 3.5 seconds within that qualifying time, which again leads me to the conclusion that I should be able to massively improve on that 5:11, not only because it will be a long course time to a short course time, but just because I've only swum it once, I don't really have the experience / intuition as to how fast I should go out over the course of this race and how far away I am from that phase 1 qualifying time in comparison to the shorter 50-meter freestyle events. I'm sure I can bring that 5:11 down significantly. A sub 5 would be good, but yeah, should be able to get nice and close to that 5:35, perhaps even that 4:35, perhaps even a 4:50. So still within the phase 2 qualifying time for the 400 meters freestyle, but only just, and on the basis that I've only swum it once ever. Yeah, that isn't too bad. Moving on now to Butterfly, the 50-meter event, so to speak. My personal best again was set at Swim England Masters Nationals, but back in the 2023 edition with a 30.57, where the phase 1 qualifying time is a 28.0. So I am 2.57 seconds off, so closer than I am for the 50 meters freestyle, but around about the same level. And the phase 2 qualifying time is a 32.5, so just under 2 seconds barrier there. So again, I should be able to enter through the phase 2 phase so long as I get my entry in quick enough. But again, these phase 2 qualifying times are getting awfully quick, where I wouldn't have swum a 32.5 3 or 4 years ago. 3 or 4 years ago. Yeah, so, you know, I wouldn't have necessarily been able to achieve a 32.5 in recent years. So again, getting scarily close to my actual personal best. And unless I improve on that 30.57 at this year's Masters Nationals, I won't be able to use that time next year because there's a 2-year cut-off period. So I'm really under intense pressure to improve upon my 50 meters butterfly time at this year's Masters Nationals, where I've regressed somewhat from that time. Moving on to the final event, which I have a time for, and it's the 200 meters IM. Yes, I know, I'm all over the place with these events, where my personal best is a 2:52.93, which again was swum long course, where the phase 1 qualifying time is a 2:25 flat for phase 1, which means I'm 29.93 seconds off, and that equates to 7.5 seconds per 50 meters. Whilst I'm more confident on the freestyle events, because my backstroke and breaststroke aren't particularly good, getting a lot closer to that phase 1 qualifying time I am not entirely sure about. However, I am over 10 seconds in the phase 2 qualifying time of a 3:05 flat. What is it? It's 12 seconds in, comfortably 12 seconds in that phase 2 qualifying time. So again, so long as there are entries available at the opening of the phase 2 entry period, I should be able to get a space within the 200 IM. But that phase 1 qualifying time is a 36.25 holding per 50. And whilst my 50 fly and 50 free personal bests take me comfortably within that, my backstroke and breaststroke are awful and would need significant improvement before I get anywhere close to that 2:25. But interestingly, I could swim that as a 200 meters freestyle, so just need a little bit of work on my individual medley, namely the backstroke and breaststroke legs, so I get closer to that phase 1 time. But not a priority for me. The priority are the 50 free and fly, as well as the 100 free, those being my core 3 events where I throw in the longer distances just for a little bit of fun. Which of these I enter depends massively on whether there are entries still available when that phase 2 qualifying entry period opens, and which spaces of each of these events are open, and the schedule. I'm going to have to take a thorough look at the schedule and determine which events I actually want to enter here, because if some of my lesser events come immediately before my core events, then I'm probably going to want to scrap them to mean that I'm going fresh into those core events. So next week I'll be looking at the schedule and giving a lowdown of which events I plan to enter and how that may impact my times. But thankfully I am within the phase 2 qualifying time for all these races. As expected, haven't got a phase 1 qualifying time because they were only going to improve or get quicker from last year, where I didn't have a phase 1 qualifying time last year. However, things are looking good and I'm super excited for this year's Masters Nationals, which is now less than 3 months away. So fingers crossed I'm able to qualify. I'll find out in about a month and a half's time, but very much looking forward to this year's competition as always. That is it for today's video, and if you've enjoyed it, please give it a like. Remember to follow and subscribe for more swimming content, and to swim faster on limited training time, head on over to westcough.com. Otherwise, see you in the next video.